Namaskaram. We are about the birth of the children to Vichitra Vidya. Vichitra Vidya had expired and his two wives, Ambika and Ambalika, got children through Vedavyasa at the instance of Satyavati. And Ambika, because she closed her eyes looking at Vedavyasa, she got a blind son and he was named Dhrita Rashtra. And Ambalika, because she turned pale, I remembered the name for the disease as leukoderma. I couldn't find it in the dictionary, but that's how we used to call it, leukoderma. It is a skin ailment. It is simply discolored patches on the skin, white patches. And they were called Pandu in Sanskrit. And Pandu was born with this disease or this discolored skin, and hence he was named Pandu and the name stuck. Now Satyavati was not satisfied yet because she wanted a proper grandchild who didn't have any defects. So she requested Ambika to receive the saint again. And reluctantly, Ambika agreed. And Vedavyasa was invited. When he came, Ambika played a trick. She didn't want to receive the sage again. So she dressed her maid with her own garments and sent her to her bedchamber to receive sage Vedavyasa. And Vedavyasa understood the trick, but he didn't pretend to have noticed. The maid received the sage with all respects and treated him well, and Vedavyasa was happy. And when he left again, Satyavati asked him, and he said, this time you will get a very wise child who is good in all respects. And with that he left. And the maid in due course delivered a boy who was named Vidura. Now the birth of Vidura has a history behind it. That is the story of Ani Mandavya, a sage who had long years of penance. Ani Mandavya was doing his meditation, penance for long years, and he was in a cave. And that's what these sages do. They go into the forest and look for safe, caves where they will not be disturbed from wild animals or even from other human beings. And he was in deep meditation when the king's soldiers came after a burglar. The burglar, they saw him entering the cave, and the burglar left the stolen goods near the meditating sage, and they disappeared inside the cave. And when the soldiers came, they didn't find the robbers, but they found the stolen material. They asked the meditating sage where he had met the burglars. But he didn't, the sage was not unaware of anything that was happening. He was still in deep meditation. And after questioning him for a few minutes, the soldiers got angry. So with their piercing, what is it called? A sharp instrument, which is like a big stick, I forget the name, with sharp end at the end. With that, they pierced him and took him on it and took him to the king. And the king confirmed, agreed to their act, and the sage remained on that spike for several days, and other sages came to know. He was a highly respected sage, so they came rushing and told the king, "Oh, this is a mistake, he is a great sage." So the king tried to take him out of the spike, but they couldn't. It had stuck inside his stomach. So ultimately they had to chisel it at both the ends, and the middle part remained in his stomach. And it is called in Sanskrit ani. Ani means a needle or a sharp instrument. And because he lived thereafter with that ani inside his stomach, he later was called Ani Mandavya. His name was only Mandavya. And in due course, he ended his life, and he went to heaven, and he went straight to the Dharmaraja, the justice in heaven, and asked him, "For what sin that I might have committed, I am made to suffer like that, or to lie on a spike for long days and spend the rest of my life with that piece of metal inside me?" And Dharmaraja looked through his books of crime and said, "Oh, you had, when you were young, you used to play with sticks, and with the sticks you used to pierce insects on their belly, and it was because of that you had to suffer this way." And Mandavya asked him, at what age could that be? Dharmaraja said maybe 8 or 10 years. Then he said, "You should know that before 14 years, what a child does, he is not responsible for the crime. If at all, it will be his parents, because they were supposed to guide him and watch him." So if you don't know that rule, you didn't know that rule, that's why you made me suffer. So I curse you that you be born on earth and you learn the rules of dharma, of right living all over again. And that is why Dharmaraja had to take birth on earth. And he took birth as Vidura in the palace of the Kurus. Because he was the incarnation of Yamadharma, and also because his natural inclination, he grew up very wise. He learned all the Dharma Shastra, all the science books on right contexts. And that is the story of the birth of Vidura. And Vidura would remain at the side of Dhritarashtra throughout the Mahabharata story, and he would be an advisor on what to do and what not to do, etc. in the Mahabharata story. Now, Dhritarashtra, because he was blind, he couldn't get the throne. And Bhishma anointed Pandu as the king, future king, even when he was young. And Pandu was a very good ruler, very just, but also strict. So the empire prospered. What is said is that if the ruler is right and strict, then everybody flourishes. The land flourishes. That is because plants and animals thrive. Everyone has plenty to eat, and because of strict rules, the anti-national elements, thieves, burglars, they are all under control. Either they are put in prison or they are prohibited. They are prohibited from committing crime. So people lived happily, peacefully, and everyone was happy. And it is said that there was no one who, the markets flourished. There were lots of goods to sell, and they earned money to live. And in all respects, it was a prosperous country. And when it was time for the three children to marry, Bhishma heard that in the kingdom of Gandhara, there was a princess who had pleased Lord Shiva, and he blessed her with 100 sons. So Bhishma decided that that must be the right partner for Dhritarashtra, and he sent emissaries to Gandhara, which is present-day Afghanistan. We shall continue with that story tomorrow. Namaskaram.